Anderson Cooper 360. CNN, weeknights at 8 and 10 Eastern.
More on day 2 of the Michael Jackson death trial. The prosecution zeroing in on the minutes that are crucial to their case. They called 2 key witnesses who described Dr. Murray's words and actions on the day that Jackson died. They recounted, as you heard, a scene of panic, chaos that left Jackson's kids in tears. Their testimony also raised questions the defense are going to have to address. Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta's some inside information tonight on the defense team strategy. He joins me now. Sanjay, you talked to sources on the defense team, inside the defense team. What direction do they say they're going to go to try to take this case in?
Well, they had some very specific descriptions of what they say happened on that particular day, and they described a scene where they say Conrad Murray did give Michael Jackson propofol, something that we've heard quite a bit about. They say then he waited about 10 minutes or more before he left the room. Relevant because they say the amount of propofol they gave would have been in and out of Michael Jackson's system within that time. What they say next, though, was pretty startling, Anderson. They say they think that after Conrad Murray left the room, that Michael Jackson had in fact been feigning sleep, or as they put it, playing possum. And he got up, literally got out of bed, went and took more tablets. This lorazepam, took 8 of these 2-milligram tablets of that and injected more propofol into his system, and then went back to bed. So they say that Michael Jackson actually self-administered both this anti-anxiety medication and propofol after feigning sleep in front of Dr. Conrad Murray. Again, sources close to the defense saying this.
There was something else they wanted, in particular, they wanted to clarify with you. Was that the means by which Jackson administered the lethal dose of propofol?
Right, yeah. I mean, this has gone back and forth, as you know. There was some talk yesterday that he ingest it, which typically, means that someone who takes this in orally. But now sources, saying that it was actually, he had what's called a port in his leg, sort of an indwelling IV. That port was hooked up to an IV bag with tubing, and that they say Jackson himself injected the medication into the tubing, and the IV fluid sort of pushed it into his body.
So the defense also talked to you about another drug that Jackson was being treated with by another doctor, Demerol, which they're saying Dr. Murray didn't know he was being treated with that?
That's right, and they're saying even up to 2 days before Michael Jackson passed away, they say he was getting 3 to 4 procedures a week on his face. So up to 2 days before, he was still getting these procedures, and as part of these procedures, which were described to me as oftentimes just minor procedures, things like Botox, for example, but he would get Demerol with those procedures. Relevant for 2 reasons. One is that, Michael Jackson had known problems with Demerol in the past, and as you say, Dr. Murray is saying he didn't know about it. The second thing is that as Demerol breaks down, as people are coming off of Demerol, sometimes it breaks down into a metabolite that actually acts as a stimulant in the body, keeps people awake, and they say in Michael Jackson's case, made it very difficult for him to sleep, which brings us all back full circle.
I want to bring in Sanjay Marcia Clark, former Los Angeles Deputy DA, and also Mark Garagos, criminal defense attorney. Marcia, Jackson's personal assistant was testifying today that when Murray called him after Jackson had stopped breathing, at no point did he tell him to call 911. That surprised me. I mean, how damning do you think that is?
I think it's terribly damaging. If you're going to go, you have a patient who's at least in some form of distress that looks very severe, and you call 3 personal assistants before, and children, before you even think about calling 911. And as I understand it, Anderson, he never did call 911. One of the assistants did, or one of the security guards, whatever. That's outrageous. That's just simply outrageous. I think it looks terrible for him.
Mark, is that explainable from the defense standpoint?
Well, I think clearly the defense is going to take the position, why is he going to call 911? Why do you call a paramedic when you've got a cardiac trained physician who's there, who presumably, if somebody's in cardiac arrest, who would you rather have working on you, say a physician or an EMT? And I think that's going to be their position.
Another interesting moment, Marcia, came when the lawyer for AEG testified that Murray Request AEG is the company that was sponsoring the concert, the upcoming concerts, paying Jackson a lot of money, that they requested that Murray requested CPR equipment to Jackson, which he said was because of Jackson's age and the schedule that he was going to be on. But we now know from our own reporting that when administering propofol, one of the things that you need on hand is resuscitation equipment.
That's right. And so that's why he was requesting a setup like that, obviously, because he was going to be administering propofol. That was the plan. I think that there was a plan all along. That's why Michael Jackson hired Dr. Murray to begin with. This was the doctor who was going to give him everything he wanted. In my opinion, this is a doctor who's turned into a pusher. And Michael hired his own provider, his own supplier. And Dr. Murray was willing to do it. So he was at least responsible enough to request some of the equipment. What's surprising to me, Anderson, is that he didn't have a lot of the equipment that you see, that you've actually shown before on your show, that is necessary to do it safely. The oximeter, all of the kinds of monitoring that have to be done in order to make sure that too much propofol was not given. In spite of the fact that he requested CPR equipment, he obviously wasn't using it.
Mark, how do you think the defense so far has been going about defending their client?
Well, look, so far you're in the incipient stages of this trial. It's not like an ESPN analysis of a football game where you look after every play and what's going on. The opening statement, I thought, was effective for the defense in this sense. They put up there the idea that they're going to have Dr. White, who's the self-professed father of propofol, get up there and talk about the fact that there was not enough propofol in his system to kill him. And they're going to also, and I thought one of the most significant things they're going to talk about is that the coroner did not test the contents in the stomach. And if they tested the contents in the stomach, which the defense says they have, that's going to show that somehow that something was administered that was not done intravenously. If that's the case, the defense has got a pretty good point. I think the biggest problem with the defense is going to be on cross-examination of Dr. White. What is he going to say when they ask him, when the DA says to him, when Mr. Walgren says, you know, do you give propofol? Do you think it's the standard of care to give it in your house? That's the problem that they have to deal with.
And Sanjay, you, back in 2009, you tracked down another one of Michael Jackson's doctors who had traveled on tour with him, according to sources that you'd spoken with, that back then he gave Michael Jackson propofol. Listen to what he had to say.
We've come here because your name was obviously associated with Michael Jackson, and people said that there was a question of whether or not you gave anesthesia to him while he was on tour, and we just wanted to come to the source, you, and hear and find out if that had happened.
I'm very upset. I'm distraught. Michael was a good person. I can't talk about it right now. It's really something I don't want to talk about right now. I lost a friend, and I feel very badly about that.
Do we have, Sanjay, any idea just how far back Jackson's struggles with or use of propofol went?
Well, I don't know before that point. That was, over 15 years ago. I mean, what was striking about, talking to Dr. Ratner and talking to people who led me to Dr. Ratner was they were describing a scenario where essentially, an anesthesiologist, in this case, Dr. Ratner, they say, was traveling with Michael Jackson and putting him down, as they put it, every night and bringing him back up in the morning. It was quite striking to hear that description, again, many years ago while he was on tour.
Sanjay, I appreciate it. Mark Garagos, Marcia Clark as well.